It was a warm, sunlit Thursday afternoon in the central courtyard of Harrison Design headquarters in Fairmont, and I had just finished my afternoon facilities sweep. My 9-year-old daughter, Grace, was spending the day with her grandparents, so the quiet courtyard felt unusually still. Sitting alone on a wooden bench was 8-year-old Lily Harrison, holding colored pencils and a sketchbook. As I walked past, Lily looked up and smiled softly. "Mr. Ethan?" Without a word, she held out her drawing. In neat crayon strokes, she had drawn a warm house with a wooden fence. Standing in front were 4 figures: me, Grace, Lily, and her mother, Claire Harrison, the chief executive officer of our entire enterprise. Before I could speak, the glass doors opened, and Claire stepped outside. Her eyes fell on the drawing, and her elegant expression instantly shifted into a cold mask. Late that evening, after the office staff had cleared out, Claire summoned me into a darkened hallway. "I need you to do something for me, Ethan," she said tightly. "I need you to stay away from Lily for a while." The words hit me hard. Did I do something out of line? "You haven't done anything wrong," she admitted in a strained whisper. "She's getting attached to you, and Grace is getting attached to her. I cannot let my daughter build a fantasy family around us that we haven't chosen." I swallowed my pride and nodded. "Okay, you're her mother. I'll respect your boundaries. My name is Ethan Miller. I am 38 years old, a facility maintenance supervisor, a widowed single father, and the woman who asked me to step back is my boss." I thought the hardest part of my week was hearing Claire tell me to stay away. I was wrong. For days later, a violent summer gale slammed into Fairmont, knocking out power across the corporate retreat facility where we were stranded. Inside a darkened, storm-slicked hallway, 8-year-old Lily panicked. Claire knelt beside her, extending her arms. "Sweetheart, come with me. It's safe." Lily shook her head violently, her small fingers wrapping tightly around the sleeve of my work jacket. "No," she sobbed into the dark. "I want to stay with Mr. Ethan." Looking at Claire across the narrow space, I saw the raw realization in her eyes that some boundaries don't protect the people we love. They just make everyone feel entirely alone. To understand how 4 people ended up standing in that darkened hallway, you have to go back to a quiet evening at Claire's apartment 1 week before she told me to stay away. I have worked as a facility maintenance supervisor at Harrison Design for nearly 5 years. I earn a modest living, enough to rent a quiet 2-bedroom apartment, keep food on our table, and drive a 10-year-old sedan. I am not wealthy, and I have never viewed my CEO as a financial savior. Claire Harrison built her luxury resort design firm into a multi-million-dollar empire. She is sharp, highly structured, and intensely protective of her daughter, Lily. Following a divorce 2 years prior, Claire established one unbreakable rule: never allow a man into Lily's world unless his presence is guaranteed for life. I carried my own hidden scars. 6 years after losing my wife, I tried dating a lovely woman for 8 months. But as things grew serious, she admitted she wasn't ready for a life where a 9-year-old child's needs always came first. When we split, my daughter Grace asked softly, "Did she stop liking us, Dad?" Hearing Grace say us crushed my heart. That exact day, I erected an unshakable wall around my heart. My personal rule was identical to Claire's: never let Grace build an attachment to someone who might walk away. Yet, despite our rigid personal boundaries, our daughters naturally brought us together. 8 months prior, Grace accompanied me to the office on a Saturday while I cleared a pipe leak. Lily was sitting alone in the executive lounge, sketching. Grace simply pulled out a pencil and asked, "Can I borrow that paper?" Within minutes, the 2 girls were constructing elaborate paper gardens. From that afternoon forward, whenever work required our presence on weekends, Grace and Lily sat side by side, building quiet worlds of their own. Lily loved talking to me because I didn't treat her like a project. When she asked why I fixed things for a living, I offered a dry smirk. "Because broken chairs don't pay rent, Lily, and because I like knowing how things fit together." "People don't fit together easily," Lily noted thoughtfully. "No," I agreed softly. "People are significantly harder." A week before the storm, Claire invited Grace and me to her apartment for dinner after the girls spent 4 hours building a cardboard fort at the office. We made homemade pizzas on her kitchen counter. "This kitchen looks remarkably unused, Miss Harrison," I noted dryly, adjusting the oven. "I cook, Ethan," she argued, arching an eyebrow. Grace giggled from the table. "Dad burns pancakes every Sunday. That was a structural griddle failure, Grace," I defended deadpan, making Claire burst out laughing. A rich, genuine sound that took my breath away. For 3 short hours, we weren't a CEO and a maintenance worker. We were just 2 exhausted parents enjoying burnt crusts alongside our children. But as I tucked a sleeping Lily under a blanket before leaving, she stirred sleepily and murmured, "Next time, Mr. Ethan." Claire heard those 3 words, and a wave of panic crossed her face. She realized her daughter was constructing a sense of home around a man whose presence wasn't guaranteed. And deep down, Claire was terrified because she was beginning to want the exact same thing. For days later, she asked me to stay away. For 4 long days, I strictly honored Claire's request. Whenever I finished my maintenance rounds near the courtyard, I walked the long way around the building. If Lily looked toward my tool cart, I offered a polite nod and kept moving. I watched her confusion turn into quiet disappointment, but I told myself I was respecting a mother's boundaries. On Friday afternoon, the firm hosted its annual retreat at an isolated, timber frame facility in the hills outside Fairmont. I was assigned to oversee the auxiliary utility systems during the event, and Grace accompanied me. Claire arrived early with Lily to manage executive presentations. As I checked the electrical sub-panel in the main lodge, Claire walked past carrying leather binders. "Good morning, Miss Harrison," I said smoothly, keeping my tone strictly formal. Claire stopped in her tracks, her hazel eyes searching my face with subtle frustration. "We're back to a Miss Harrison? I am simply maintaining professional boundaries as requested," I replied deadpan, turning back to my meter. Before Claire could speak, a sharp rumble of thunder echoed across the valley. By 5 o'clock that evening, torrential rain flooded the low-lying access roads, while high winds knocked down pine trees across the main power lines. The facility's primary electrical grid failed instantly. Emergency services issued a formal travel blockade. All 60 attendees were trapped at the lodge for at least 2 days until road crews could clear the mudslides. Families were consolidated into central guest quarters. Grace, Lily, Claire, and I were assigned to a large residential suite on the 2nd floor. At 7:30 p.m., a secondary power surge tripped the suite's breaker, plunging our hallway into near total darkness. Lily, already struggling with the storm chaos, let out a terrified gasp. Claire knelt beside her daughter. "Sweetheart, come with me. It's safe in the bedroom." Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Seeing me standing near the utility panel at the end of the hall, she broke away, ran toward me, and wrapped her small arms tightly around my leg. "Lily," Claire gasped, hurrying down the hall. "Come here right now." "No," Lily cried out, clutching my jacket. "I want to stay with Mr. Ethan." I dropped to one knee, bringing myself level with the crying child without undermining her mother. "Your mom is right here, Lily," I said, my voice low and calm. "And I'm not going anywhere either. Nobody has to choose." Claire froze, staring down at us in the shadows. "Look at me, Lily," I murmured gently, holding out my hand. "Do you see this flashlight? I need a chief engineer to hold it while I check this breaker box." Lily sniffled, wiped her nose, and took the flashlight from my palm. Claire slowly sank onto the floorboards beside us, her guarded posture completely collapsing as she watched her daughter calm down within 60 seconds. For 10 quiet minutes, as thunder rattled the heavy window panes, for people sat together on the floor of a darkened hallway, anchored by the steady presence of an ordinary man who refused to let anyone feel afraid. By 9 o'clock that evening, auxiliary power cast a warm amber glow over the spacious living room. Grace and Lily sat on the plush area rug near the stone fireplace, using cardboard boxes and masking tape to build a miniature city. In the small kitchen, Claire stood before an electric hot plate, staring down at a pan of scrambled eggs with corporate frustration. I walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter. Are you attempting an executive takeover of those eggs, Miss Harrison? Claire spun around, holding a spatula like a defensive weapon. The heat distribution on this auxiliary plate is completely unregulated. Ethan. The plate is fine, Claire. I grunted deadpan, stepping beside her and taking the spatula. You have the dial turned to maximum. Scrambled eggs require patience, not corporate ambition. I manage a multi-million-dollar development firm. Ethan, she argued, resting her hip against the quartz counter. I don't do slow cooking. Clearly, I smirked, scraping a rubbery layer into a bowl. Step aside before you trigger the building's fire suppression system. Claire let out a breathless, genuine laugh, tossing a dish towel at my shoulder. You enjoy being completely insufferable, don't you? Only around people who think money solves cooking physics, I replied smoothly, handing her a fresh fork. Across the rug, Grace looked up. Dad burns pancakes every Sunday, Miss Claire. Don't let him lecture you. Thank you for that loyal character reference, Grace, I grunted, making both girls burst out laughing. For the next 48 hours, forced proximity stripped away every remaining corporate barrier between us. We ate simple meals together at the wooden dining table, worked on our respective laptops, and shared quiet moments. I noticed that Claire's personal smartphone had a cracked glass screen. How long has that screen been shattered, Claire? 2 months, she answered without looking up. It functions. I pulled a small roll of optical tape from my pouch, took her phone, and carefully sealed the cracked glass so it wouldn't cut her fingers. Claire watched my calloused hands work with quiet intensity. You know, Ethan, you could let me buy a new phone. I fix things, Claire, I said softly, setting the smooth device beside her coffee mug. I don't throw them away just because they have a few cracks. Claire went silent. She looked at the phone, then looked up into my eyes, her breath catching softly. Later that evening, after the girls drifted off to sleep, Claire and I sat by the hearth with 2 mugs of tea. I need to apologize to you, Ethan, she murmured into the quiet room, for telling you to stay away from Lily. I thought I was protecting her, but the truth is, I was terrified. Terrified of what? Claire looked straight into my eyes, dropping all sarcasm. Terrified that my daughter would fall in love with the quiet, safe life you build for Grace, and terrified that I would fall in love with it too. My heart hammered against my ribs. Claire. My ex-husband left because he felt I didn't need him, she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. He said I controlled everything. I swore I would never let another man make me feel guilty for being strong. But standing in that dark hallway 2 nights ago, I realized that letting someone hold a flashlight for you isn't weakness. It's just trusting them not to leave you in the dark. I reached across the space between our chairs, gently taking her warm hand in mine. I have never wanted you to be smaller, Claire. I just wanted to be the man standing beside you when the lights go out. We sat hand in hand by the fire, 2 guarded parents who had spent years hiding behind rules, finally realizing that the safest place in the world was right beside each other. By 10 o'clock the following morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind clear blue skies and cold mountain air. Auxiliary road crews had cleared the fallen trees, and cellular service was restored. I walked into the kitchen to find Claire sitting rigidly at the dining table, staring at her laptop screen with a pale expression. Everything all right, Claire? I asked, setting a glass of water beside her. Claire closed her laptop with a sharp snap. That was an official executive notification from the Global Development Board. For what? I asked, my stomach dropping. Seabrook, she whispered. They're opening a major coastal resort development there. They want me to relocate on site and lead the expansion for 10 months. My chest tightened into an icy knot. Seabrook. It was a major coastal city over 1,600 kilometers away. It requires an immediate physical residency, she added softly. I have to give them my official decision within 36 hours. My old protective instincts flared up instantly, erecting a wall around my heart to protect Grace and myself. That's an extraordinary career leap, Claire, I said smoothly, taking a step back. You should definitely accept it. You've worked your entire professional life to lead a national expansion. Claire let out a sharp, bitter laugh, glaring at me with white-hot anger as she stood up. There it is. What? I asked, taken aback. The safe, polite answer, she snapped, stepping around the table until she was standing less than a foot away. You did it again, Ethan. You put on your polite maintenance voice and made the decision for me before I even finished my sentence. I am trying to be supportive of your career, I argued, raising my voice slightly. You are protecting yourself, she countered, her voice trembling. The moment things get slightly complicated. You build a wall and push me away so you don't have to risk getting hurt. Her raw words knocked the wind right out of my lungs. She was undeniably right. I was using nobility as armor to avoid vulnerability. I have a daughter, Claire, I whispered forcefully. I swore I would never put Grace through the pain of watching another person she loves walk out of her life. I am not asking you to be reckless, Ethan, Claire cried softly, squeezing my hands tightly. And I am certainly not asking you to choose between your daughter and me. But you cannot use being a good father as armor to keep everyone out. You never gave me the chance to choose you. Tears stung my own eyes as her confession shattered my remaining defensive walls. I didn't tell you to stay away 4 days ago because I was worried about Lily, Ethan, she sobbed quietly, leaning her forehead against my chest. I saw that drawing she made, for people standing in front of one house. I was terrified because I wanted that house too. I stood completely frozen in the quiet kitchen. I am hopelessly, wildly in love with my facility supervisor, she whispered, looking up. And I want to know if you are brave enough to tell me what you actually want. I want you to stay. My voice broke. I want Grace and Lily building cardboard castles in our living room. I want to spend 40 years complaining about your terrible scrambled eggs. I am hopelessly, terribly in love with you, CEO. Claire let out a half-sob, half-laugh. Took you long enough, Miller. I reached up, cupped her warm face between my calloused hands, and kissed her. A deep, tender kiss that wiped away 3 years of corporate boundaries, unsaid truths, and fear. When we finally pulled back, breathing heavily in the morning light, her laptop chimed sharply on the table. An automated reminder flashed on screen. Seabrook offer acceptance deadline, 35 hours remaining. By 8 o'clock the following morning, emergency road crews had fully cleared the mountain highway, opening traffic back to Fairmont. Before addressing the distance, Claire took immediate action to resolve our workplace hierarchy. First logistics rule. Starting Monday morning, you no longer report through my executive line, she stated firmly at the counter. I am transferring your direct facility management supervision to our Chief Operating Officer, Marcus Vance. I will not have anyone questioning your promotions or accusing us of a conflict of interest. I agree completely, I nodded, respecting her professional integrity. Next, we pulled out a legal pad and mapped out 3 realistic scenarios for Seabrook. Option 1. Claire moves to Seabrook full-time for 10 months. Result. The 1,600-kilometer distance would severely strain a brand new relationship. Unacceptable. Option 2. Claire flatly declines the board offer. Result. She sacrifices a massive career milestone and might eventually resent our relationship for it. Unacceptable. Option 3. The hybrid executive strategy. Claire realized she had been operating under the corporate assumption that a CEO had to physically sit in the Target Resort office 5 days a week. She decided to counter-offer the board. She would oversee the Seabrook launch on a compressed hybrid schedule, spending 8 weeks on site for initial setup, followed by a rotating schedule of 2 weeks in Seabrook and 2 weeks, working remotely from Fairmont each month. She would also promote David, her senior design lead, to branch manager in Seabrook to delegate daily tasks. Meanwhile, I officially agreed to delegate routine maintenance sweeps to my senior technician, allowing me to take extended remote workdays when Grace was with her grandparents so I could fly to Seabrook twice every quarter. We established core relationship rules. No saying "I'm fine" when something is bothering you. No canceling visits without booking makeup trips. Sunday evening family dinners with Grace and Lily are uncancelable. And after 4 months, we'll evaluate the arrangement together with no endless limbo. Later that afternoon, we sat down with Grace and Lily in the living room to talk honestly with them. "Grace, Lily," Claire began gently, kneeling beside the coffee table. "Mr. Ethan and I have decided that we are going to start dating as a real couple." Grace looked at Lily, then looked back at me. "Finally," Grace noted, rolling her eyes. "Dad was getting really grumpy." "I was not grumpy, Grace," I defended deadpan, making both girls giggle. Claire looked into Lily's eyes with gentle intensity. "This doesn't mean anyone is replacing your dad, Lily. We're taking things one careful step at a time." Lily reached out, taking Grace's hand. "Can we still build cardboard houses together? Every single weekend, sweetheart," I promised softly, kneeling beside Claire. At 4:42 p.m., 18 minutes before her official deadline, Claire sat at her desk in her Fairmont penthouse, finger hovering over the send button for her formal counter-proposal email. She looked over at me, her hazel eyes filled with nerves. "If I press send, Ethan, we're starting a real relationship with 1,600 kilometers between us." "I don't care about the kilometers, Claire," I smiled softly, wrapping my arms around her waist. "I've been in love with you for 3 years while sitting 30 feet below your office. Distance isn't going to stop us now." Claire let out a breathless laugh and tapped send. At 4:56 p.m., her phone chimed with the official response. "Counter-proposal approved. Hybrid executive schedule finalized." Before she could speak, I unlocked my cell phone and showed her my screen. An airline booking confirmation for 2 round-trip tickets to Seabrook for Grace and me during her upcoming school autumn break. Claire stared at the screen in disbelief. "You booked tickets before I even clicked send?" "I'm trying a brand new lifestyle rule," I smirked, kissing her cheek softly. "Deciding before I'm 100% sure." 15 months later, autumn sun painted the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of our new Fairmont home in rich shades of gold. We hadn't bought a luxury mansion, nor had I moved into Claire's old penthouse. Instead, we rented a sunlit 4-bedroom house near the river, a space that belonged to all 4 of us equally. The hybrid arrangement hadn't been an effortless fairy tale. We dealt with delayed flights, spotty video calls, and exhausting workdays. There was one painful Friday in month 3 when Claire missed Grace's school science fair due to an emergency site collapse in Seabrook, leaving Grace deeply disappointed. In the past, my habit would have been to shut down, say "I'm fine" politely, and retreat behind my walls. But instead of hiding, I called her immediately, admitted how lonely and frustrated I felt, and booked a flight to visit her the following weekend. Claire didn't buy expensive toys to bribe her way out of the mistake. She flew back on a midnight flight, showed up at 6 in the morning, sat on Grace's bed, and looked my daughter straight in the eye. "I made a promise to you, Grace, and I failed to keep it. I am so sorry, and I will do better next time." That was the moment I knew Claire was truly staying. She didn't just love me. She loved my daughter enough to be accountable to her. Claire successfully launched the Seabrook Resort and built a brilliant local management team, allowing her to transition back to the Fairmont main office full-time. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, all 4 of us gathered in the central courtyard at Harrison Design for the opening of a community art park that Claire's firm had donated to the city. Lily sat on a wooden bench near the garden bed, drawing in her sketchbook while Grace passed colored pencils back and forth. Claire walked out of the glass building wearing an elegant dark dress, looking breathtaking under the afternoon sun. She walked up to where I stood near the brick pathway, wrapping her arm through mine. She looked over at Lily, who was holding up a brand new drawing of our 4-person family in front of our river house. Claire raised an eyebrow, looking up at me with a playful spark in her hazel eyes. "Still refusing to leave your side, I see? Your fault, CO?" I grinned, pulling her close. "How is it my fault, maintenance supervisor?" She countered smoothly. 15 months ago, you told me to stay away from your daughter?" I whispered, pulling a small velvet box from my canvas jacket pocket. It was officially the worst executive order you ever issued. Claire froze, her hand coming up to cover her mouth as tears filled her hazel eyes. I set my tools aside, knelt down on one knee right there on the brick pathway, and opened the box to reveal a simple, stunning diamond ring. 15 months ago, you asked me not to leave you in the dark, I said, my voice thick with emotion. The truth is, I was just a terrified man looking for an excuse to stay in your life forever. I took a deep breath, looking straight into her eyes. Claire Harrison, will you marry me? Claire burst into tears, throwing her arms around my neck and kissing me deeply right there in the courtyard. Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times, yes. Grace and Lily let out loud, triumphant squeals, running across the bricks to throw their arms around both of us in a massive group hug. When Claire first told me to stay away, we were two guarded parents hiding behind rules, terrified of getting hurt. What I learned was that protecting a family doesn't mean building walls. It means having the quiet courage to open your heart, stand together, and build a home with the people who make your life complete. What a beautiful, inspiring reminder that second chances in love and family devotion are always worth the courage it takes to speak up. Do you think Claire was right to keep her feelings hidden out of fear of protecting Lily? Or should she have been brave enough to tell Ethan the truth much sooner? How can professional single parents better navigate long-distance career opportunities without sacrificing their relationships or their children's stability? We would love to hear your perspective and personal stories in the comments below. If this story brought joy to your heart today, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with someone special in your life.